Leaving his pregnant wife behind, a billionaire watches in panic as she moves in with a CEO in the glamorous corridors of New York's high society, where fortunes shift with a single deal and reputations rest on whispers. A shocking betrayal was poised to topple a gilded empire. Sebastian Wentworth, a calculating billionaire with an impeccable pedigree, made the reckless decision to walk out on his pregnant wife, Harper Sullivan Wentworth, at a time when she needed him most. Unbeknownst to him, she would find support in an unexpected place. James Astor, a powerful CEO whose charm and compassion eclipsed Sebastian's cold ambition. As scandal brews and loyalties are tested, everyone wonders, how far will desperation and regret drive the man who once had everything? Sebastian Wentworth grew up in a world where doormen greeted him by name, private drivers ferried him to exclusive prep schools, and his every whim was indulged by a coterie of well-paid staff. His father, Nathaniel Wentworth, had amassed a fortune in real estate and tech investments, famously turning a $5 million loan into a multi-billion-dollar empire. Sebastian, their only son, was educated at the most prestigious institutions, Eton in his teenage years and Harvard Business School in his 20s. His world had always been perfectly orchestrated, with power and prestige forming the backbone of his identity. It was at a Manhattan charity event that he first encountered Harper Sullivan. While everyone there flaunted wealth in designer suits and jewel-toned gowns, Harper wore a simple, understated dress with minimal jewelry. Unlike the other guests who postured for cameras, Harper spent the evening chatting with older philanthropists and personally thanking donors. Something about her genuine warmth charmed Sebastian, a man who was rarely moved by anything beyond profit margins and strategic alliances. They dated for 6 whirlwind months, a courtship filled with quiet dinners, philanthropic galas, and spontaneous flights to tropical islands. Harper's modest upbringing in upstate New York gave her a refreshing sincerity. Though she found Sebastian's world intimidating, she carried herself with quiet confidence. Her background as an interior designer with a knack for repurposing vintage finds served as a grounding force against Sebastian's luxurious tastes. 2 years into marriage, life appeared idyllic. Their wedding had graced the social pages, Wentworth heir weds benevolent beauty in lavish ceremony. The storybook union seemed complete when Harper discovered she was pregnant. But behind the polished facade, tension brewed. Sebastian, newly placed at the helm of Wentworth Industries, sank deeper into a cutthroat corporate environment. Long days morphed into all-nighters, and anxious phone calls from the board replaced dinner conversations. Harper, once in awe of her husband's confidence, began seeing darker shades of that ambition. He was critical of her slower pace, her desire to create a warm home environment. He dismissed her gentle suggestions about balancing family and career, while she tried to be supportive, standing by him at events. Managing her own blossoming design business, Sebastian's drive left little emotional space for her or the unborn child. A subtle distance took hold in their penthouse on Fifth Avenue. Harper, who used to look forward to Sebastian's return each night, now dreaded his clipped tone and the frustrated sighs he heaved when confronted with any pregnancy-related talk. When she nudged him about attending prenatal classes, he brushed off the idea, retorting he had a company to run. Harper felt her heartbreak deepen with each rejection. Little did she know that the cracks forming now would soon split their marriage wide open. And Sebastian, so confident in his powerful name and bottomless bank account, would learn that money can't buy back trust once it's shattered, nor prevent the unstoppable force of regret. The turning point arrived on an unseasonably warm night in late March. Harper was 4 months pregnant, reeling from morning sickness and the swirl of hormones. She'd spent the evening preparing a simple, homemade meal, nothing extravagant, just soup and grilled vegetables. Sebastian was supposed to be home by 8 for once, having promised to discuss the next ultrasound appointment. He never made it. At 10:30, the front door swung open, revealing an agitated Sebastian, phone pressed to his ear. His jacket reeked of cigar smoke, and his expression was stormy enough to make Harper's heart sink. He ended the call sharply and threw the phone onto a marble side table with a clatter. "What happened?" Harper asked, struggling to keep her voice steady. She'd spent 2 hours waiting, reheating the food twice, anxious to share a rare evening together. "Nothing you'd understand," he snapped, pacing across the living room. His tone was harsher than usual, as though all the frustrations of the day had chosen this moment to erupt. "Do you have any idea how delicate the Lindstrom negotiations are?" "If we don't close this deal," she bristled. "I've heard about the Lindstrom deal for weeks, Seb, but I needed you tonight. I texted you about the baby's test results. They came in. I thought we could look at them together." He raked a hand through his hair, irritation flaring. "I can't think about that right now. Everything is at stake with Wentworth Industries. My father's legacy is on the line. If I don't push these expansions, and what about our legacy?" She countered, tears threatening to surface. "What about the child we're bringing into this world?" Sebastian closed his eyes, letting out a ragged sigh. "You know, Harper, sometimes I feel like you don't get it. This is bigger than us. The company is," she cut him off. "No, the company's not bigger than us. Family should come first." In the tense silence that followed, the ticking clock in the hallway felt deafening. Sebastian glared at her, exasperated. "Look, if you want to prioritize family, be my guest, but I can't, not now. If that means you need to step away for a while, so be it." A cold dread settled in Harper's stomach. "What are you saying?" He averted his gaze. "Maybe we need space. I can't handle these arguments on top of everything else. Maybe it's best if you go stay somewhere else for a while until I sort this out." The words hit like a physical blow. Harper's chest tightened as she realized her own husband was pushing her away despite her pregnancy. Despite their marriage vows, she fought the tears, swallowing down the raw pain. "Fine," she whispered, voice trembling. "I'll leave in the morning." Sebastian didn't protest or try to stop her. He merely walked to the window, staring at the glittering city lights that once seemed so enthralling. In that moment, the penthouse felt like a cathedral of emptiness, echoing with regrets, yet to be fully understood. True to her word, Harper packed a suitcase the next morning. She included a few maternity outfits, her prenatal vitamins, and personal belongings. She couldn't bear to leave behind. A silent Sebastian watched from the living room, coffee in hand, but no trace of warmth in his gaze. She tried to catch his eye one last time, hoping he'd apologize or ask her to stay. Instead, he turned away, engrossed in a stock report. Tears burned her cheeks as she rode the elevator down to the lobby. In the crisp air of Manhattan's morning bustle, she inhaled deeply, determined to remain steady. She had no plan, only a small bank account of her own, separate from Sebastian's fortune, which she'd built from her design commissions. Home wasn't an option. Her parents were no longer alive, and she had no siblings to turn to. Her only lifeline was her best friend, Dana Holloway, a marketing executive who lived in a modest condo in Tribeca. When Dana opened her door, she let out a shocked gasp at Harper's disheveled appearance. "Harper, oh my God, what happened?" Wordlessly, Harper broke down, the sobs she'd contained finally bursting free. Dana gathered her into a fierce hug, rubbing her back as she cried. When she could speak, Harper recounted the fight from the previous night, how Sebastian demanded space, how he was consumed by business ambitions. Dana's voice shook with anger. "He kicked you out? While you're pregnant? That's insane. You can stay here for as long as you need. We'll figure something out." Harper spent the day at Dana's, lying low and ignoring the phone that occasionally buzzed with calls from the penthouse's landline. She wasn't ready to face Sebastian's demands, likely more corporate speak about strategy or a half-hearted mention about a marital arrangement. Instead, she lay in bed, resting a hand on her belly and wondering how her life derailed so quickly. That afternoon, a stroke of relief arrived in the form of an unexpected email. James Astor, CEO of a boutique venture capital firm called Astor Holdings, had seen Harper's portfolio of design work through a mutual acquaintance. He was renovating his Westchester estate and needed an interior designer to reimagine the space. The contract promised to be lucrative, not to mention a chance to channel her heartbreak into creativity. Fate, it seemed, was offering a lifeline. Harper responded promptly, setting up a meeting at Astor's corporate office. She was determined to prove she was more than just Miss S. Wentworth, a tag that had overshadowed her talent since her marriage. She also sensed that throwing herself into work might distract her from the gaping wound Sebastian left. Over the next few days, she poured her energy into preparing mood boards, sketches, and referencing design trends for James Astor's estate. When the day of their scheduled meeting arrived, she put on her best maternity blazer, practiced her pitch in the mirror, and tried to quell the swirling mix of excitement and anxiety. Little did she know that James Astor was about to become far more than just a client, and that accepting his help would set off a chain of events that would send Sebastian's world spinning out of control. The offices of Astor Holdings occupied a sleek, modern building near the Hudson River. Floor-to-ceiling windows captured panoramic views of the water, and the reception area featured minimalist art that exuded tasteful sophistication. Harper felt a flicker of nerves as she approached the front desk, recalling how her last business pitch had been overshadowed by the brand power of her soon-to-be husband, Sebastian. This time she stood alone, representing her own brand and skill. The receptionist led her to a glass-walled conference room where James Astor awaited. A tall man in his late 30s, James possessed an air of quiet assurance rather than the loud bravado that often accompanied CEOs. His crisp charcoal suit hinted at wealth, but his calm demeanor and genuine smile suggested he didn't rely on intimidation. Harper found it refreshing after years of living with Sebastian's stern sense of self-importance. "Miss Sullivan, thank you for coming," he greeted, gesturing to a plush chair across from him. "I've heard marvelous things about your design approach." Harper introduced herself, then launched into her prepared spiel showing him color palettes, architectural references, and a preliminary vision for the estate's interior. She made an effort to hide any personal turmoil, focusing purely on professionalism. James listened intently, occasionally jotting notes or asking targeted questions. As the meeting progressed, Harper sensed his interest was genuine. He was impressed by her innovative suggestions for integrating modern lines with the estate's classic structure. When she finished, he leaned back, folding his hands. "I appreciate your thoroughness. My schedule is hectic, and I need someone I can trust to manage this project autonomously. You strike me as someone who values excellence and detail." A flush of pride warmed Harper's cheeks. "Thank you, Mr. Astor. I believe in delivering the highest standards." He smiled. "I think we can drop the formalities. Call me James, and I'd be honored if you'd take on this project. My only concern, you're expecting. Will that timeline be an issue for you?" Harper's stomach twisted. She worried any mention of pregnancy might undermine her business credibility, but James's tone wasn't condescending or dismissive. It was sympathetic, as if he cared about her well-being. She cleared her throat. "I'm due in a few months. I'm confident I can manage the bulk of the planning and initial phases before then. Perhaps we can establish a short break around my due date." James nodded, an empathetic expression flickering across his features. "That's entirely reasonable. Let's finalize a contract and coordinate a schedule. If you need additional team members, let me know. I want this project done right, and I'm not afraid to invest in the best resources." Relief washed over Harper. For the first time since her marriage imploded, she felt valued for her talent. After they concluded, James walked her to the lobby, sharing tidbits about the estate's history. She found herself laughing at a light-hearted joke he made about the property's quirky architecture, momentarily forgetting the heartbreak she left behind. Before parting ways, he offered a business card. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And take care of yourself, Harper. Stress can be tough during pregnancy. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. She realized how starved she was for genuine kindness. Sebastian had grown so distant, yet this near stranger cared enough to show concern. It bolstered her courage to keep moving forward. She stepped onto the sidewalk with a buoyant step, feeling an undercurrent of possibility stir within her. Meanwhile, across Manhattan in his palatial office at Wentworth Industries, Sebastian was about to discover that banishing his wife wasn't just a personal mistake, but one that could unravel everything he held dear. While Harper began her new project with James Astor, Sebastian dove deeper into the labyrinth of corporate battles. Days merged into nights of cutthroat negotiations to seal the Lindstrom deal, the largest international expansion in Wentworth Industries' history. He scrawled out contract revisions at midnight, fielded calls from lawyers at dawn, and hammered out boardroom disputes. The mechanical routine of high-stakes commerce consumed him. The more success Sebastian chased, the emptier his penthouse felt. Shadows clung to the corners where Harper's warm presence used to linger. He told himself that her departure was a temporary measure. Once the Lindstrom acquisition stabilized, they could reconcile. Yet weeks slipped by without so much as a text from Harper. She had effectively cut him off, leaving him in a silent vacuum of uncertainty. Attempting to assuage his guilt, Sebastian buried himself in deals. But guilt lurked in stray moments when he glimpsed a pregnant stranger on the sidewalk or caught a random whiff of the brand of soap Harper once used. Late at night, he'd stand by the nursery they had started planning, the half-painted walls reminding him of a future he was systematically neglecting. One afternoon, while scanning a glossy business magazine, he stumbled upon a profile piece on James Astor. The Vanguard CEO, taking Manhattan by storm, read the headline. A full-page photo showed James in a tailored suit, leaning casually against a polished mahogany desk. The article praised his philanthropic ventures, referencing a new property renovation in Westchester. No mention of Harper, of course, but a subtle disquiet rattled Sebastian. He vaguely recalled hearing about Astor's fortune self-made in venture capital, rumored to have a personal net worth that rivaled certain old money dynasties. Setting the magazine aside, Sebastian tried to dismiss any concerns, but an uneasy tingle followed him. If Harper was working on that estate, she was in close proximity to a man whose calm, confident style contrasted sharply with Sebastian's intensity. A pang of jealousy sparked. He told himself that no matter her new circles, Harper was still his wife, pregnant with his child. She'd return eventually, wouldn't she? On a rare break, he dialed her number, but it went straight to voicemail. He left a terse message, "We need to talk about the baby. Call me back." Another day passed no response. Agitated, he tried again, only to realize she'd blocked him. A swirl of fear and anger warred in his gut. How dare she shut him out? He turned to Dana, Harper's best friend, only to be met with a chilly rebuff. "Harper's done being your afterthought." Furious, he demanded an explanation, but got nowhere. Meanwhile, his own mother, Olivia Wentworth, scolded him for allowing such a domestic fiasco to overshadow the family's pristine image. She insisted he fix the situation before the gossip columns caught wind. Her solution, a contrived apology, perhaps a spa weekend. Sebastian found the idea shallow, but desperation gnawed at him, so he half-heartedly agreed to meet with Harper when the time was right. He had no idea that fate would soon spiral out of his control. James Astor was about to become a significant figure in Harper's personal life, bridging the chasm Sebastian had so recklessly opened. And when news reached him that Harper was no longer just working with James, but living under his roof, Sebastian's carefully curated composure would break in ways no business deal could mend. Harper's new contract with James required frequent trips to his Westchester estate. At first, she'd drive up with a drafting table wedged in Dana's trunk, working inside the sprawling mansion that was undergoing renovation from floor to ceiling. She supervised contractors, selecting paint palettes, light fixtures, and custom furniture to complement the estate's classical architecture. James visited on weekends to review progress. He'd wander the echoing halls, occasionally offering input but largely deferring to her creative instincts. Harper found his trust refreshing. Over casual lunches on the terrace, they exchanged stories her childhood in upstate New York, his early struggles, pitching his first startup, her recent heartbreak. He listened without judgment, the empathy in his gaze encouraging her to open up about Sebastian's neglect. As her belly grew heavier, climbing the estate's multiple staircases became cumbersome. She noticed fatigue creeping in, and the hour-long drive each way drained her further. Sensing her discomfort, James gently proposed an alternative. Why not stay in one of the estate's guest suites while you work? It'll save you the commute, and you can oversee everything day by day. At first, the idea startled her. She worried about impropriety, about fueling rumors, but James's sincerity was hard to ignore. "I don't want to impose," she murmured. "You wouldn't be imposing. Honestly, the place is so vast I barely utilize half the rooms. I'd feel better knowing you're comfortable, especially with the pregnancy." After days of indecision, a minor pregnancy scare pushed her to accept. She experienced dizzy spells while driving, a near miss on the highway. The frightened call to her obstetrician ended in firm advice to reduce stress and travel. So she agreed to James's offer, rationalizing it as a purely practical arrangement. When she told Dana, her friend teased, "Living with a tall, dark, philanthropic CEO. That's like the plot of a romance novel." Harper rolled her eyes but couldn't deny the sense of relief at removing daily travel from her routine. She remained vigilant, however, ensuring clear professional boundaries. This was about her safety and the job, nothing more. The move happened quietly on a breezy Saturday. Dana helped Harper pack essentials, maternity clothes, design tools, personal keepsakes. As they pulled into the estate's sweeping driveway, a mixture of nerves and cautious excitement buzzed in Harper's chest. She tried to ignore the faint voice in her head, warning of Sebastian's reaction if he found out. James welcomed her warmly, showing her the spacious guest suite, a bright room with tall windows overlooking manicured gardens. A private sitting area allowed her to spread out her design materials. That evening, Harper found herself dozing off to the gentle hum of crickets and the faint babbling of a courtyard fountain, a stark contrast to the city's roar. Although she felt a twinge of guilt for feeling comfortable in another man's home while still legally married to Sebastian, her rational mind reminded her, he cast you out. He made his choice. A choice that, by the following morning, would put a scandalous spin on everything Sebastian treasured. Because word of Harper's presence in James Astor's estate was about to leak, and the man who believed all could be resolved with a show of power or money would face a situation he couldn't simply buy off. Sebastian first heard the rumor from a longtime business associate, Lawrence Pierce, who dropped it casually over drinks at a private club. "So, your wife's taken up with James Astor, huh?" A prickle of hostility shot up Sebastian's spine. "What are you talking about?" he growled, swirling his bourbon in a crystal tumbler. Lawrence raised an eyebrow. Haven't you heard? Word is, Harper moved into his Westchester place to do some design work, and possibly more. The insinuation made Sebastian's jaw clench. Pierce shrugged. I'm not judging, man, but that's the buzz. People are whispering that Astor's being more than just a client. Sebastian forced a laugh, trying to feign indifference. Inside, a tempest of betrayal and jealousy raged. How dare Harper move into another man's estate? How dare James Astor, that upstart CEO, offer her refuge? And how had Sebastian become so divorced from his own wife's affairs that everyone else found out before him? He cut the evening short, ignoring the curious stares of other members as he stormed out of the plush lounge. In the privacy of his town car, he dialed Harper's number again, still blocked. Furious, he texted Dana, demanding answers. She responded with a curt message, "She's safe. That's all you need to know." Overcome with rage, he hammered out a second text, only to see that she too had blocked him. He was completely shut out. The next morning, he sought out his mother, Olivia Wentworth, hoping for maternal backing. Olivia was perched in her elegant parlor, reading the Financial Times. She set aside the paper, lips tight. "Sebastian, your father and I taught you better than this. Society is buzzing about Harper living with another man." He slumped onto a velvet settee, tension making his shoulders rigid. She overreacted. "I told her we needed space. I never told her to shack up with some CEO." Olivia's polished nails tapped on the side table. "You told your pregnant wife to leave?" "My God, Sebastian, what were you thinking? I was under so much pressure with the Lindstrom deal," he began, but she cut him off. "Business is no excuse to abandon your family. You risk more than just your marriage. Our entire reputation is on the line." She exhaled, rising. "You must fix this before the tabloids spin it into a scandal." It dawned on Sebastian that while he was fixated on expansions and brand deals, Harper was seeking solace elsewhere. The day ended with him pacing the penthouse, mind racing. He considered driving up to Westchester, forcibly confronting her and James. But such a move risked turning an already delicate situation explosive, and Sebastian disliked losing face, especially if Harper refused to see him. Instead, he formed another plan, to approach James Astor directly under the guise of a business conversation. He rationalized that they were both men of power. Surely they could reach an understanding. And deep down, Sebastian believed that once James realized he was infringing on a billionaire's territory, he'd relent. In the hush of the night, Sebastian tried to quell the uneasy memory of the final look on Harper's face when she left. He recalled her eyes brimming with heartbreak. He'd never meant to sever ties so harshly, but spurred by arrogance and the illusions of control, he had. Now, faced with rumors that another man was stepping into the paternal role, Sebastian's heart pounded with unspoken fear. Because for all his fortune, he was powerless to purchase the redemption he so desperately craved. To secure a meeting with James Astor, Sebastian invoked a veneer of business interest. He had his assistant reach out, expressing potential synergy between Wentworth Industries and Astor Holdings in certain tech investments. The ruse worked. Within 2 days, James agreed to a sit-down, presumably anticipating a fruitful corporate alliance. The meeting was scheduled at a neutral location, a private lounge within Manhattan's illustrious Meridian Hotel. Sebastian arrived early, unsettled by the tension thrumming in his veins. He'd practiced calm lines in front of the mirror, determined not to let jealousy unravel him. This was a man-to-man discussion, he reminded himself. No outbursts. James Astor walked in precisely on time, exuding the composed confidence of a man who earned his success through intelligence and empathy. He wore a tailored navy suit, matched by a crisp white shirt. As he approached, Sebastian noticed James's eyes, a certain warmth behind them, a calm steadiness. "Mr. Wentworth," James greeted, extending a hand. "Thanks for inviting me. My schedule's tight, but your assistant mentioned a collaboration opportunity." Sebastian forced a polite smile, shaking James's hand. They settled into plush chairs near the lounge's window. For the first few minutes, Sebastian tried discussing possible business angles, joint acquisitions, or philanthropic endeavors. James listened, but a faint frown tugged at his brow, as if sensing something was off. Finally, Sebastian cut to the chase. "I understand you've hired Harper, my wife, to renovate your Westchester property." James's eyes flickered in acknowledgement. "Yes, she's been doing an excellent job. Her designs are stunning." Sebastian stiffened. "I also hear she's been staying there." James took a measured breath, placing a hand on his knee. "Harper's living arrangements are her personal choice. She's had a difficult time recently. She wouldn't be in difficulty if she hadn't walked out on me," Sebastian retorted, trying to keep his tone even. "Surely, James, you understand how it looks, my pregnant wife staying under your roof." James met his gaze steadily. "I offered her the guest suite because her commute was draining and she needed a peaceful space. She's carrying a child, your child. She deserves comfort and safety." The words struck Sebastian like an accusation. He clenched his fists. "I appreciate that, but you also realize it's causing rumors. People assume there's more to it. If by more to it you mean a romantic entanglement, that's not something I need to defend." James's voice remained gentle, yet firm. "Harper is an incredible person. She's also an adult who can make her own decisions." Sebastian's anger flared. "She's my wife. We're not divorced. I have rights here." James's eyes flashed for the first time. "Then perhaps you should exercise them in a way that respects her well-being, not your ego. If you truly care, talk to her, own your mistakes. Don't blame me for providing her a safe haven when you turned her away." Silence crackled between them. Sebastian realized James wasn't cowering or stepping aside. The man was calmly asserting that Harper had agency and that her comfort took precedence over Sebastian's pride. Tight-lipped, Sebastian stood. "Thank you for your time. This conversation has been enlightening." James rose as well, offering no handshake this time. "If you truly want what's best for Harper, show her. Actions speak louder than words." Sebastian left the lounge, his emotions a storm of resentment, regret, and a grudging respect. James Astor had bested him in composure. Worse, the man seemed genuinely invested in Harper's welfare. That was a game-changer. Sebastian never expected a philanthropic CEO who might offer not just shelter, but the kindness and stability Sebastian failed to provide. News of the tension between Sebastian Wentworth and James Astor soon filtered through Manhattan's upper crust. Though discreet, the exchange at the Meridian Hotel was spotted by a paparazzo lurking near the lobby. Speculation surged that the meeting had ended acrimoniously. Society circles buzzed. Was Harper divorcing Sebastian? Would the baby be raised with James as a surrogate father? None of this made its way into official tabloids yet, but the hush of private conversations carried the rumor like wildfire. Allies of the Wentworths fretted over the family brand's potential tarnish. Board members at Wentworth Industries quietly expressed concern that Sebastian's personal drama might distract from crucial deals. Meanwhile, distant relatives of Harper's, who rarely engaged with her, now called to glean gossip. Harper, tucked away in the peaceful enclave of James's estate, discovered the swirl of speculation one morning when Dana forwarded an email from a friend. The friend, a socialite, wondered if Harper had truly abandoned her marriage for James Astor's billions. Mortified, Harper cradled her phone, reading the message with trembling hands. She'd never intended to spark public scandal, but Sebastian's bitterness and James's protective stance had become fodder for salacious rumor. Later that day, James noticed Harper's distress. She was reviewing paint samples in the grand foyer when he approached. "You look upset," he commented gently. "What's wrong?" She hesitated, then showed him the email. "They think we're an item. That I used my pregnancy as a stepping stone to jump from one billionaire to another." Her cheeks flamed with shame. James's expression darkened. "That's ridiculous. You have nothing to prove to those gossips. You're here for work and your safety." She tried to smile, but tears pooled in her eyes. "I just hate being a spectacle. Sebastian's mother must be mortified. And well, he might be furious. Let him be," James said firmly, though not unkindly. "You deserve peace, Harper. You're not a commodity to be traded between powerful men." His words eased some of her tension. She nodded, resolving to press forward with the project and avoid the outside noise. Meanwhile, she scheduled an appointment with her obstetrician to ensure the baby was still thriving amid the emotional upheaval. Unbeknownst to her, Sebastian was busy orchestrating a new approach, one that combined legal strong-arming and manipulative charm. He consulted a high-profile divorce lawyer, Marcus Silverstein, behind closed doors. The plan: if Harper refused to return home, Sebastian could leverage his paternal rights. He painted the scenario as though Harper had abducted his unborn child by refusing him contact. Marcus cautioned him, "Your standing in court might be compromised if the judge views your actions as abandonment. Are you sure you want to escalate this legally?" Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "I'm not giving up. That child is mine. I refuse to let James Astor or anyone else overshadow that." The lawyer gave a non-committal nod, letting Sebastian's determination hang in the air. That same evening, Sebastian typed a carefully crafted letter to Harper, adopting a gentler tone. He apologized for his outburst, claimed he missed her, and wanted to settle matters privately. In truth, it was a ploy to coax her away from Astor's domain. When Harper received the email, a swirl of conflicting emotions overcame her. She read his words, references to their early love, regret for the misunderstandings, and tears slipped down her cheeks. Part of her yearned for reconciliation, but she also recalled the coldness in his voice when he demanded she leave. Now, with her baby soon to arrive, she stood at a crossroad. Accept Sebastian's olive branch and risk further neglect, or remain in James's supportive orbit, igniting rumors and the possibility of a scandalous future. Little did she realize, fate was about to force her hand in a far more dramatic way, one that neither Sebastian nor James could fully control. 2 months later, Harper was in her 3rd trimester, juggling design deadlines and frequent prenatal checkups. She had grown close to James in a comfortable, platonic way, sharing breakfasts in the Manor's sunlit dining room, exchanging book recommendations, discussing philanthropic ideas. She found him both intellectually stimulating and emotionally grounded, a stark contrast to Sebastian's relentless ambition. She still read Sebastian's occasional emails or texts, some contrite, some angry, but left them largely unanswered. He hovered on the fringes of her life, an intangible presence. She tried to remind herself that his frustration stemmed from fear, not necessarily cruelty. Yet, every time she pictured him demanding she leave, her heart constricted. Then came the day everything changed. Early morning, Harper was walking through the estate's rose garden, reviewing final touches for the interior design, when she felt a sharp cramp in her lower abdomen. Alarmed, she paused, breathing through the pain. It subsided, only to return minutes later, more intense. Panic set in. She was 34 weeks pregnant, far too early for labor. James, alerted by a gardener who witnessed Harper's distress, rushed out to her side. One look at her pale face told him something was seriously wrong. He helped her inside, calling her obstetrician. The doctor advised immediate hospitalization for observation. Within half an hour, James had whisked Harper to the nearest hospital in his sleek black SUV, reassuring her as she fought tears and clenched her teeth against mounting contractions. At the hospital, doctors confirmed signs of preterm labor. They administered medications to try slowing the contractions and gave steroids to help the baby's lung development. If an early birth was unavoidable, fear engulfed Harper. She cursed herself for ignoring subtle signals: fatigue, stress, the swirl of emotional turmoil. As staff hooked her to monitors, measuring the baby's heartbeat, James phoned Dana and the doctor for updates. Then, in a move that showcased his remarkable empathy, he called Sebastian. Regardless of their differences, the father deserved to know. "Harper's in the hospital," James said quietly when Sebastian answered. "She's in preterm labor. You should come." A stunned silence followed before Sebastian demanded details. James calmly gave the hospital's address, ignoring any biting remarks. He set aside his personal rivalry, focusing on Harper's best interests. Sebastian arrived at the hospital soon after, disheveled and frantic. He found James outside Harper's room, conferring with a nurse. For once, Sebastian didn't posture. His anxious eyes jumped from James to the closed door. "Is she okay?" he asked, voice tight. James nodded, stepping aside. "They're doing everything they can to stop labor. She's stable for now." Swallowing his pride, Sebastian quietly opened the door. Inside, Harper lay on a bed, and the fourth drip in her arm, face drawn with fear. She looked up, and their eyes met. For a moment, the heartbreak and anger receded in the face of a more primal bond. They were about to become parents. Possibly sooner than expected. She forced a small smile, tears glistening. "They said the baby's heartbeat is strong. They're trying to keep him or her inside a bit longer." Sebastian gently took her hand. "I'm here," he murmured. "I'm sorry for everything." Harper closed her eyes, exhaling shakily. She felt a tangle of emotions: relief that he came, lingering hurt, unexpected gratitude for James standing quietly behind him. This surreal convergence of father and caretaker overshadowed the messy drama of recent weeks. In that moment, the baby's fate became paramount. No one could predict how the next hours would unfold, whether their child would arrive prematurely or if the medical intervention would buy more time. What was certain, the crisis that forced them all into the same room would either push them further apart or open a path to some form of reconciliation for the sake of the life that connected them all. The medications brought only 24 hours of delay. Harper's contractions returned with a vengeance the following evening, and the obstetrician decided an early delivery was necessary to avoid complications. She was wheeled into a delivery suite, tension climbing with each contraction. Sebastian hovered at her side, pale and trembling, while James remained in the waiting area, prepared to assist if needed. Labor was harrowing. At 34 weeks, the baby was premature, and concerns about respiratory development loomed. Harper grit her teeth, focusing on breathing techniques. Sebastian clenched her hand, whispering apologies, regrets, and quiet encouragement words that poured from him in a raw vulnerability she hadn't seen before. Despite everything, she needed him now, and he rose to the occasion, supporting her through waves of pain. After hours of excruciating effort, baby Henry Oliver Wentworth emerged with a thin wail that signaled life, but also fragility. A swirl of relief and panic swept the room. The medical team whisked the baby away to the neonatal unit for immediate care. Exhausted, Harper collapsed against the pillows, tears of joy and fear mingling. Sebastian pressed a trembling kiss to her forehead, eyes watery. "We have a son," he whispered, voice quavering. He was terrified, uncertain if the baby would face complications, but also awed at the miracle of new life. Harper squeezed his hand, tears streaming. "He's so small," but he cried. "That's good, right?" The nurses nodded, reassuring her that Henry was stable but required monitoring in the NICU. When the doctor permitted visitors, Sebastian peered through the NICU's glass, gazing at the fragile infant in an incubator. Overcome, he realized the magnitude of fatherhood and the heartbreak of almost missing out on these precious moments. James, aware of the delicate boundary, stayed mostly in the background. He congratulated Sebastian with a simple handshake and expressed relief that both Harper and Henry were alive. For once, Sebastian felt gratitude toward the man he'd despised, recognizing that James had been a pillar of support for Harper in ways Sebastian had failed to be. Over the next few days, as Henry gained strength, the atmosphere between Harper and Sebastian softened. They shared quiet visits to the NICU, sometimes sitting side by side, watching Henry's tiny chest rise and fall. The precarious nature of a premature baby overshadowed their past resentments. Sebastian even apologized earnestly, acknowledging his selfishness. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he murmured, "but I'm begging for a chance to do better." Harper, emotionally raw, offered no grand proclamations. She was too focused on Henry's daily progress, rejoicing when he breathed better, despairing at any minor setback. James popped in occasionally, bringing fresh meals or offering rides back to the estate for Harper to rest. She recognized how drastically her life had changed, living in the CEO's home, yet reunited with her estranged husband over their child's uncertain future. Meanwhile, Sebastian wrestled with guilt. He yearned to bring Harper and Henry home to the penthouse, to resume the life he'd foolishly cast aside. But each time he imagined it, the question lingered, would Harper trust him enough, or was her loyalty shifting to James? One evening, while Harper slept in her hospital room, Sebastian found James in the corridor. The two men locked eyes, tension brimming. Finally, Sebastian extended a hesitant hand. "Thank you," he said, words heavy with sincerity, "for looking after her and for telling me about the labor." James studied him, then gave a slight nod. "Harper's well-being matters more than any feud. Henry's precious, he needs both his parents." Sebastian's chest tightened. "I want to do right by them." He paused, swallowing. "But if she chooses to stay at your place, that's her decision. I can't force her back." James's voice was steady. "Harper is free to choose. I'll support whatever she decides." Left unsaid was the question of whether Harper might choose James. Neither man pressed for clarity. In that hospital corridor, overshadowed by the beep of monitors and the hum of overhead lights, both recognized that a fragile life had rearranged their priorities, and none of them would leave unchanged. 2 weeks later, baby Henry was healthy enough to leave the NICU. For Harper, it was a moment of profound relief, cradling her son, feeling his warmth. Hearing his soft coos made every heartbreak and anxiety melt away. Sebastian hovered close, tears shining in his eyes when the nurses finally disconnected Henry from the last of the monitors. The question remained, where would Harper and Henry go? The day of discharge, she gathered her things in the hospital room, eyeing the suitcase. Sebastian stood by, awkwardly hopeful. Meanwhile, James arrived, offering a gentle smile. "I brought a car seat for Henry. Thought you might need it." Her gaze flicked between the two men, each representing different paths. She took a shaky breath, pressing her lips to Henry's downy head. "I appreciate everything you've done, James," she murmured, eyes glistening. "And, Sebastian, I know you're trying, but I need time to figure out what's best for Henry and for me." Sebastian nodded, heartbreak flickering across his face. "Wherever you go, I'd like to be part of Henry's life. You both can rely on me financially, emotionally, any way you want." James lowered his gaze respectfully. "My door's always open if you need a safe space. But I understand if you prefer a more private environment." Harper felt an ache in her chest, recalling the penthouse's emptiness and Sebastian's former neglect. Yet she also recognized his recent efforts. I'll go back to the estate for now," she decided, voice trembling. "It's where Henry's nursery is almost finished, and the environment's calm. Sebastian, we can arrange visits, or you can stay nearby if you want." While relief shone briefly in James's eyes, Sebastian's shoulders sagged, but he nodded, forcing a supportive smile. He couldn't protest. He had lost the right to demands when he drove her away. "I understand," he said quietly. Days later, the trio parted ways. James drove Harper and Henry to his Westchester estate, ensuring the baby seat was secure. Sebastian lingered behind, heart heavy, but determined to remain in Henry's life. Over the following weeks, he visited the estate regularly, each time battling a storm of complex emotions. He often found James there, kindly stepping aside to give father and son privacy. Slowly, a new rhythm emerged. Sebastian discovered fatherhood's quiet joys, holding Henry against his chest and feeling the infant's steady heartbeat, changing diapers with fumbling eagerness. Harper observed him, torn between old resentments and the new tenderness he displayed. Sometimes, as she watched Sebastian cradle Henry, her mind flashed to the humiliations she endured. But for Henry's sake, she extended cautious grace. James maintained a respectful distance. The estate was large enough for everyone to coexist without constant awkwardness. He even offered Sebastian a separate room if needed, ensuring Henry's father had a place to rest after long evenings. This improbable arrangement made the estate a safe bubble of sorts, though rumors about Harper living with two men flared in certain circles. She shrugged off the talk, focusing on Henry's well-being. One crisp morning, while Henry napped in a sunlit corner, Sebastian and Harper walked the garden paths. He spoke haltingly about therapy sessions. He'd started an attempt to address his workaholic patterns and emotional aloofness. She listened, heart softening at the vulnerability in his voice. "I'm not perfect," he admitted, "but I see how toxic I became. I want to be better for you, for Henry, and for myself." Harper's eyes grew misty. "I need time to trust that." He nodded. "I know." They continued strolling, leaves crunching underfoot. For the first time since their fight, the conversation felt open, unguarded. Meanwhile, from the manor's library window, James watched them with a subdued smile. He recognized that while he cared deeply for Harper, she and Sebastian shared a bond that spanned love, heartbreak, and now the life of an innocent child. If they found a way back to each other in a healthier form, James wouldn't stand in their path. As the weeks turned to months, Henry thrived chunkier, more alert, responding with giggles to the odd household dynamic. Harper completed the estate's renovation, finishing her contract with James. She faced another crossroad: remain under James's roof, or attempt to rebuild a home with Sebastian. The final choice remained a tangle of love, forgiveness, and the unspoken truth that she had, at times, begun to see James as more than just a friend. But for now, the estate's wide halls echoed with renewed possibilities. Henry's soft laughter, the fragrance of newly hung drapes, the hush of the wooded grounds. Life had changed irrevocably, but perhaps for the better. The future was an open page, ready to be written by hearts that had learned, painfully, the value of compassion and the cost of pride. Harper, Sebastian, and their infant son, Henry, found an unlikely sense of peace in James Astor's estate, learning that compassion can come from unexpected places and that true love demands honesty, empathy, and the willingness to grow. Though Sebastian's betrayal nearly shattered Harper's trust, the bond forged by Henry's premature birth prompted each person involved to face their flaws and let go of resentment. Whether Harper decides to rebuild her marriage with Sebastian or pursue a brand new path, one thing remains clear: her voice, her worth, and her ability to stand strong for herself and her child will guide her future steps. If you felt the heartbreak, tension, and hope in this roller coaster of love and second chances, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support fuels more dramatic fiction stories that capture the resilience of the human spirit. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for further tales that inspire, challenge, and remind us of our capacity to heal.